All right, let's do football in our two-parter with Nick Wright. So let's start with Daniel Jones. You're in New York. 4 years, $160 million.
This is batshit crazy, Colin. But go ahead. Sorry.
I went back to Duke, where he had an offensive coach, a legend, David Cutcliffe.
Yeah, of course.
The Manning family, excellent guy. In college, he had 52 touchdowns and 29 picks. If you add in the fumbles, it's like 52-35. It's not even 2-1. It's like 1.5-1 ratio. In the NFL, 72 touchdowns, running or throwing, 57 turnovers, fumbles or picks. So Mahomes obviously is the class of the league, 4-1. Other great quarterbacks give you 2.5 to 3-1. Daniel's not 2-1. Daniel is closer to 1.5 to 1.
I got a worse ratio for you, Colin. Post-rookie year, more games played than touchdown passes. More games started at quarterback than touchdowns thrown. Last year was the best year we've ever seen him. He threw 15 touchdown passes. This is why the franchise tag exists. So if a guy who in a contract year has an outlier season, and again, everyone's like this, he was great this year. He had 15 touchdown passes. You can then be like, okay, show it to us one more time. And I am shocked that the Giants made this decision. All year, this is the thing that's so baffling to me. People were arguing Brian Daboll should be coach of the year. I agreed with them in large respect because they were like, look at what he's doing with Daniel Jones. And now they're like, here's $160 million, Daniel Jones. I thought what they would do this year was franchise Jones and risk taking a step back for the sake of information, meaning they're going to say, okay, Daniel, you actually have to play the real position now. It's not just safe layups, run the ball, run you. Where you're gonna have to we're gonna throw a sophisticated passing offense at you, and see if you can sink or swim. And if you swim, we'll pay you. Because now they're in a weird spot where they have paid him, and I think they have to run this high school offense again. And I'll give a guy credit, Greg Rosenthal, who works for the NFL.com, writes good stuff. He's a smart guy. Because I didn't think about this. He said he thinks that ownership maybe had a say in this. That ownership
absolutely
who had a relationship with Eli and held on to him too long, that they like how he carries himself, who he is as a person, and that they put their finger on the scale. Because I can't imagine Shane and Daboll want to be tied to him for at least 2 more years and probably 3.
No, this has always been my takeaway. This is a blue blood franchise. When I was in Connecticut, most of my friends were Giants fans and Yankee fans. And so, I listened. I went out drinking. I hung out with Yankee and Giant fans. And first of all, Giant fans have had a lot of success, like Yankee fans. They're often older. They're like Michigan Wolverine fans. They've been good since the 40s. So they tolerate a little more. They're a little more patient, right?
Sure.
I always said, even when the Giants win, they're an accounting firm. They've never won and you went, wow, what a spectacular. That's not what they are.
Sure.
They take pride in intelligence, grinding, work ethic. That is their brand. Like the Ravens. Have they ever had a good team that wasn't tough as shit?
No.
They are physical.
Right.
Right?
The Raiders want to be fast. There are the Steelers want to have great linebackers and play defense. There are certain things we know.
Okay.
Yep.
So the Mara family, he looks like Eli. Their haircuts are the same. Southern.
Yep. Carries himself, does all that stuff, and they don't want
to
get on the carousel. But it's just there are 2 moves. Because the move that I'm the most aghast by is what the Saints did. And I apologize. My dog's going crazy back there. I hope it's not distracting you guys. Okay.
I love dogs.
The Saints move. Can I talk about that for a second, or do you want to stay
here?
No. Listen, I think Derek Carr's good. I think they'll probably win the division. So this is not an indictment on Carr. The Saints have been operating their franchise like they have inside intel that the NFL is going to fold in 2025 and none of the rest of us know. They run their team the way I think I would run my Amex if a doctor said you have 6 months to live. Well, fuck it. Everything's free, I guess. And so when you had Drew Brees and it was like, okay, it's the very end of an all-time quarterback. Let's put it all on the credit card and pay the bill later. I get it. I totally get it. The Bucs did it with Tom. We'll worry about the future and the future, try to win right now. And now that Tom's gone, you saw today the Bucs cut Donovan Smith, cut some other people. They're going to take their medicine and tear it down and build it back up. The Saints have been pretending that they're still contenders. Colin, 2 years ago, Drew Brees' last year, because they had built the team like he was going to retire a year early. $44 million in dead money. And I know people are like, the cap's fake. It's not fake. If everyone else gets to spend 200 and you get to spend 150, you're handicapped. Then Drew retired. The next year, $50 million in dead money. Well, that's a problem. This year already, $40 million in dead money. They haven't even cut listeners to this. If you're a football nerd, go to the Saints spot rack page and click on Michael Thomas. You know what you'll see? That the Saints on their books for not this season, but the one after, Michael Thomas's cap hit. Michael Thomas, who once upon a time was a good receiver, his cap hit for the season after this is $59 million. I'm going to go ahead and say that's not sustainable. And they keep doing it. And instead of taking their medicine, they're like, no, maybe we can win the division. And it guarantees you won't win a championship. You might not bottom out, but you won't win a championship. The Eagles, on the other hand, won a title, tore it all down, took their medicine, got back to the Super Bowl. The Bears, I'll give them credit. The new people get there. They're like, we are super far away. Let's not pretend we're not. Let's take all the dead money this year, $80 million. Will hopefully be really bad, get a really good pick, got the number one pick, have $100 million in cap space, no bad contracts left, and then go compete. These teams that act like the bill never comes due, it comes due, man. And it's just a terrible way to run a team.
So I've got a belief on this. I've always said this, you become your market. All great LA teams have some sizzle.
Sure.
The Green Bay Packers in the conservative Midwest run their team like a post office, right? They're still licking stamps. They are conservative. They let Aaron Rodgers and Favre push them around. It's draft and develop. They never take a star receiver in the first round, right? They play it safe.
Yep.
What is New Orleans? It's America's party city.
Okay.
It's a good time on a Saturday night. So the Saints know what their customer base is. They party Saturday night with SEC football. It's LSU. Well, you're not going to go slow and small on Sunday. The Saints are a party. Stars.
They can't be in the wilderness for a couple of years.
And Mickey Loomis is one of the absolute sharpest personnel evaluators in the league. And he trusts himself that he's going to find 4 great players in the draft and not have to pay him for 4 years. And when you trust yourself, Mickey's like, I'll make it work. We got this guy, I'll get Davenport.
Yes, I understand all that. But at some point, somebody needs to say within the organization, each of the last 4 years, our record's gotten worse. And in the last 4 years, we have won 1 playoff game, and it was against Mitch Trubisky. How close are we? And Sean Payton's gone now, and Drew Brees has been gone. So you have Dennis Allen, Derek Carr, and a stripped-down roster. I don't know. I think also part of this is my own residue of that's how my team ran its business for the Chiefs. The Chiefs, I believe, won more games than any franchise in the 1990s and never were going to win a Super Bowl. That's true. I think in the regular season, Colin, I think that's true because it was similar. It was Kansas City. Like, we've got to just be in it. People will be happy. They want good.
Yes.
And then after that, they took their shot with Montana. And then for like my entire adolescence, the Chiefs plan at quarterback was who's the Niners backup? Because we went like Montana to Bono to Gerback. Like that's what they did. Alex Smith then eventually also did it. And then they finally said, because they had not drafted a quarterback in the first round pre-Mahomes since the Marino draft when they took Blackledge the year before I was born. So they went 40 years, they're a little less, between drafting quarterbacks in the first round. They finally did it. And again, hitting Mahomes is hitting the lottery. I get it. But now they're a Super Bowl away from having as many as the damn Niners. Like, I mean, it's in franchise history. It's unbelievable, like how quickly it can turn. And the Saints, do you know, this was floating around. Do you know the last quarterback the Saints drafted in the first round?
Archie Manning.
His fucking kids have retired. The last quarterback they drafted in the first round, he's gone, his kids are gone, and his grandson's going to be the number one pick soon. Like, I'm not trying to crap on Saints fans because I think it's amazing people, but I just feel like you're on a treadmill of and not as good as it should be.
So by the time this airs tomorrow, I still think Aaron Rodgers will be a Packer. But everybody flew out. Woody Johnson, Robert Saleh, Joe Douglas, Nathaniel Hackett, they all flew out to California. By the way,
I'm sorry, I just have to get this one-liner in and then you can do your thing. The irony of the professional athlete, maybe outside of Kyrie Irving, maybe including Kyrie Irving, who has lectured us more on the hideousness of Big Pharma, having literally the heir of the Johnson & Johnson Pharma Corporation woo him to come with. Like, does Aaron know he's about to go work for Big Pharma? I'm not sure, but go ahead. Sorry, as you were. So they went out to go see him, yeah.
And, there's multiple reports. Mike Silver, somebody as part of the volume. Mike Silver breaks a lot of NFL
all over
stories.
this. He's been all over it. He had in his column for Bally's the other day, kind of buried in it, like, oh, and by the way, keep your eye on Houston with Jimmy Garoppolo. And I hadn't seen that anywhere. And now I'm seeing it pop up a few places. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But go ahead. So Silver's been all over. The Packers are done with him.
And Aaron made a point this week to basically crap on Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter, saying they don't know anybody in my circle.
Yep.
So I think that scares off some reporters. So all the leaks are coming from Green Bay. And all the leaks are the exact same thing, which is we are done with Aaron Rodgers. So they are. I think Aaron to the Jets could actually be really ugly. Now, he'll make them better. But let me throw this at you. Buffalo's got a better quarterback and a better roster. Bill O'Brien, for all his critics, was winning a division with Brock Osweiler. He's a competent offensive coordinator with Bill Belichick.
I also think Bill O'Brien's actually a good head coach. He also doubled as the worst general manager I've ever seen.
That's right.
And so Bill O'Brien, the GM, cut out the legs of Bill O'Brien, the head coach.
Right.
But go ahead.
Okay.
Sure.
Tua and Mike McDaniel were tearing the league up to Thanksgiving. Tearing the league up. Forget the rest of the AFC, where he's no longer an ascending player. He's no longer hungry. Burrow is. Mahomes still is. Allen is. Lamar is. Trevor. These are hungry, committed, ascending players. Nick, I think it's very possible he's a third-place quarterback at this point in his career.
Well, so let me add a different piece to it. Year over year, the best offenses pretty much stay the same unless there's a major change. Best defenses change a lot.
Wildly.
Listen, I think the Jets have awesome defensive personnel, but I also think it happens that a team that was the third best defense in football one year, a couple bounces go differently, you play a couple tougher quarterbacks, and all of a sudden you're the 11th best defense. So yes. I think that everyone's like they won 7 games with the worst quarterbacking in the NFL. They did. But so now what if they have the 10th best quarterback in the NFL? Okay, but what if the defense goes from winning them 5 games to only winning them 3 games? And so I think that is absolutely in play, that same defensive personnel doesn't all, have the outstanding years they had. So that's concerning. The division is concerning.
Do you know who the Jets play this year out of division?
No.
Mahomes and the Chiefs, Herbert and the Chargers, Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. Yeah. Bet that defense isn't quite as highly ranked.
Of course, yeah. And so that it's tough, right? And so then there's so I'm conflicted on this on a principled level. I think as a union guy, you know this about me. My dad ran firefighters union. I'm a union guy. I'm not management. I almost hate believing this. And I'll explain what this is. Sorry, I'm building a long bridge. During the last CBA, the players wanted more money. The owners wanted them to have less money. The owners said, okay, we don't want to pay you more. How about we ask you to work less? Less offseason, less mandatory days. And the players said, okay, deal. And I think the owners shrewdly understood we kind of have an unspoken ally in the entirety of sports media that will shame any player that doesn't do the optional stuff. So even though it's optional and now you don't have to do it, you're going to get killed if you don't do it. So I tend to, be like, hey, I don't show up for a lot of work I'm not paid to go to. I get it. I do feel one can make an argument. It's a little different with the quarterbacks. And it is not lost on me that the guy who held the trophy at the end of the year not only showed up to everything, organized his own preseason in Texas to work with his new receivers. And Aaron, it skipped all of it with the Packers, right? Skipped the whole offseason that was optional. And then what did we see? The first 6 weeks of the season, they're not on the same page. And then, and I imagine this is super frustrating for Green Bay, all of a sudden, Christian Watson might win damn Rookie of the Year by the end of it. Once they get on the same page, they're clicking. And I'm sure there's a level of, damn it, if you guys had been there from week 1, if we win 1 more game, we're in the playoffs. We win 2, and so here's why I bring all that up. If I'm the Jets, I really, really want to know, are you here for everything?
Yeah.
Are you this is a whole new team. I know you know Nat Hackett, so you're going to know the system. But are you going to spend the offseason with my players to get on the same page? If you are, then I am much more interested than if it's I'll show up for the mandatory mini camp and training camp. It's too many young players and a new everything to just parachute in. I just think that's a legitimate question to ask. And I don't know Aaron. I don't know what he's going to do. But the tendency of the last few years makes you think he's going to say, I'm not doing OTAs. I've got a hike to go on or something.
Also, Aaron doesn't like to be controlled by the media. He doesn't have an owner in Green Bay. He controls the small town media. So there are some basic built-in advantages that Aaron has been accustomed to. He didn't go to a football power. He went to Cal. He had more power. Green Bay, no owner, more power. Pushes back heavy on the media. Why? Because he lacked power. Green Bay, the organization, he's pushed the front office around. Here's something no athlete has in New York. True power, right? Sure. The media, sports talk, harsh columnists, the fans. Talk radio literally controls GMs. It gets very reactionary. So my question about Aaron isn't the football. It's the off-the-field stuff. The paparazzi can't control them. You can hide in L.A. and Malibu. You can't hide in New York. You have to go to Jersey and live in the forest. Aaron's going to have to give up some personal control. He'll get major pushback from a left-leaning media he's not going to get in the Midwest. And I think the football stuff, he'll be better than last year. But New York is not going to be pushed around by Aaron. They're just not.
Yeah, and this is a good, lesson's maybe the wrong word, but people can be as high maintenance as I try to be, and I actually, I think I'm not going to obviously name names or whatever of our colleagues industry wide, but I think people know the people that seem to have remained pretty normal people, even as the fame and everything has grown, and the people who, in a also somewhat normal way, once they've gotten very famous and very wealthy, have started to act a little differently. And you know what I mean? Treat people a little differently, whatever it is. I think I will name this name in a positive way. It seems to me from my interactions from every story I've ever heard that Ernie Johnson, Scott Van Pelt are two of the nicest people in the media.
Right.
You know what I mean? That treat
Right.
people well, do all these things. And they're super famous and accomplished, right? You don't have to do that if you're that level of successful, talented, and valuable. But the moment you stop being quite as valuable and talented, man, people remember how they've been treated, what a pain in the ass you've been, and there's not a lot of grace, there's not a lot of, and people, the Packers seem to be active. If I were the Jets, I would have pause by the fact that the Packers are done with this guy. Whether we trade for him or not, they're done with it. They have more information on him than anybody. They're like, we've had our full. You know what I mean? It was a good run, but we're done with it. And that would be at least a little concerning to me because I don't think he's a great player anymore. I think he's a good player. I don't think he's a great player anymore. People keep saying he won 2 MVPs. He did. And then this year, he was average. Not by his standards. By his standards, it was the worst year of his career. By NFL standards, he was average. So very expensive. Oldest quarterback in the league, right? He's the oldest now.
Yeah.
Brady's gone. He's got to be. Old, expensive, old, deteriorating, and a lot to deal with. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, they're just bigger, stronger athletes. Lamar Jackson's faster. Mahomes is more accurate. Burrow is more accurate. I mean, it happens to all of us. All know it at some point. I can see young, talented people out there. Aaron isn't as big as the good ones, isn't as fast, isn't as healthy, isn't as committed. We have to just be honest. Burrow, these guys are like when you watch Mahomes, he is the greatest come-from-behind quarterback, not by a little. Aaron doesn't have that skill. Burrow now and Mahomes are the best situational quarterbacks, period, on the planet. Josh Allen does things that even Mahomes can't do.
He's the best physical specimen. People all say something nice about Josh Allen.
It's not a knock. Aaron's 6'1.5", 39 years old, and it would be if I didn't prep for my show. He doesn't commit in the offseason. So he's like a 92 passer rating guy now.
It's a weird spot. Do we have time before we go to the NBA to talk Lamar for
no. You what do you want to talk about?
This this is so fascinating on a million levels to me. I am legitimately shocked they did the non-exclusive tag.
With Lamar Jackson.
With Lamar. So the exclusive tag would have been $45 million. He can negotiate with no one else. Right. The non-exclusive is insulting, flatly. You can't have at 3:15 Eastern it come down the wire. The Ravens are going to pay Lamar Jackson $32 million. And at 3:55 Eastern, it come down the wire that the Giants are going to pay Daniel Jones 40. Yeah, that can't happen. That just can't happen. Like it's just a wild thing. It's like, hold on. The day before, Derek Carr got 37.5. Geno just got 30. I get 32 with no extra security. And what people are like, well, they want him to go out and test the market. And do I think there might be a little collusion going on? Very odd seeing all the tweets within 30 minutes of this story. Like Falcons are out, Panthers are out, Raiders are out. Like this is a league that values quarterbacks so much. We overdraft them. You give Geno 100, you give Daniel Jones 160, and there's a chorus of people like Lamar Jackson not in. Like, does this have to do with him wanting the fully guaranteed deal? Of course it does. But what everyone seems to be saying is, so the Ravens, because they can match any offer he gets. Now that's risky because you can try to put a poison pill in there. You can try to, structure it so it's hard for them to match, but they can match. They want him to go out and see what his market value is, and then they'll match it. I don't understand why some people, and I'm not trying to talk shit on anyone. I was arguing with Bruce Arden-Wilds about this today because they were talking about it in terms, to me, that act like there are not human emotions involved. Yeah. And this is, I've never been in this situation. I wonder, and I'm not trying to get into your old history, your business, but you might have been in something somewhat similar when you left ESPN, which was almost like, okay, you think you can go get X amount of dollars, go see if you can. And if you can, we'll pay you that, but we don't think you can.
Right.
Well, the moment someone says that to you, when you have been the best, the thing that has held the ship together for 5 years, it's like, well, when I'm here, we win and we score 30 a game. When I'm not, we're terrible and we lose and score 18. And now you're like, go see if the damn Detroit Lions value you more than we will, and then we'll value you exactly as much as they do. You're ruining a relationship. There's no coming back from that.
So here's my theory on this. So the best agent I've ever had is Nick Khan.
Yeah.
And the reason Nick was a great agent, of the many reasons, he was a former attorney, so he's a great negotiator. And he was a former waiter, so he was conciliatory. He had to wait on people. He's incredibly patient, never loses his cool. But when your mom's your agent, so the reason people treated me well with Nick Khan, network executives, because he had Kirk Herbstreit, because he had blankety, blankety, blank. You screw me, you're screwing Nick, you're screwing 28 high-end clients. Lamar's mom has one client. So who cares if you offend? Who cares? There's your son.
Yeah. Colin says hi. He's waving to you. Oh, you're fine. Don't worry about it. He says, Devon says hi. Keep going.
Part of having an agent isn't the negotiations. It's protection. It's a vest.
Well, so it's protection on two levels.
Yeah.
It's not just that they don't want to ruin the relationship with the agent. They also, when even in our world, certainly in the sports world, negotiations, the party that is the agent's negotiating for you, the team's negotiating for itself. So the agent comes in and says, my guy should make what Patrick Mahomes makes. And then the team says, well, here's why he's not Patrick Mahomes. Here, you're saying he's an A+, we're saying he's an A-, and they tell you all the negatives. In our business, it's like, well, actually, the ratings they aren't this or they aren't that or whatever. But if you're negotiating with the guy, you're insulting the guy. You're hurt. Like good agents don't always tell you all the negative things your employer says about why they don't want to pay you. Just
That's
like, hey,
right.
we're trying to get there. You know what I mean? But if it's, they protect you because they got to keep the relationship together. If it's negotiating with your family or you, it's like, who are they going to say? Like, when it comes up, Lamar, we don't really trust you as a passer. They're just saying that to him. Like, you're just like talking to him and saying that. It's an
very
uncomfortable
personal
situation. It's personal. And everybody says it's business, not personal. Anybody who gives a damn about their career, their business is personal. And the way that people show you they value you, there's a lot of ways, but the primary way is compensation. So I've never understood this whole thing of like, oh, take emotion out of it. It's all business. I am not a 9-to-5 guy. Like if I punched a clock, left, there's no emails, nothing. You know what I mean? No disrespect, I kind of think this is maybe a happier life. But I was like a postal worker. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, I come in, I deliver the mail, I go home. You're right. Then it's business. But if you dedicate your life to something and you really care about it, then of course it's personal. Of course, you're goddamn right, it's personal. And for Lamar to have them say to him, we're willing to lose you, and maybe we're not, but we will only pay you what someone else who you've done nothing for will pay you. Which is also why I think Lamar's done there. Because again, I get mixed with metaphors comparing myself, players, whatever it is. But I think I've done a pretty damn good job in my run with Fox. I'm proud of it. I think you just sent it. You just retweeted a thing. The shows are doing well, and I've been the consistent piece of the TV show I've done for a long time, and I hope to work Fox for a very, very long time. But if at some point, like, I was like, hey, this is what I think I'm worth. Fox, like, not even close. We're 50% apart. Not even close. Can't do it. And then Hulu was like, we'll give it to you. And then Fox was like, okay, we will too. I'd be like, well, what do you mean? These people don't even know me and they'll give it to me. I would immediately feel like, well, they must value me more. The site, without me doing anything for them, they'll do it. And that's how, if any team makes Lamar a real offer, I think that's where he's going to want to be. And so I threw Detroit out there. That wasn't flippant. I think Detroit could probably get a second-round pick for Goff. So you get some of the compensation back. They have the cap space. The NFC, think about that quarterback thing you did on TV today. Where does Lamar go to on the NFC quarterback side? Top 3 immediately on turf with those weapons. They got the kid from Jameson Williams. Was he Alabama? That he barely played this year. I like that. I'd have that conversation. There's a number of teams that should be stopping what they're doing and saying, hold on, guys. Yeah. We can get Lamar Jackson. Let's at least have the meeting. Let's at least talk about it and see what it is.
Yeah, Washington would be top of my list as well. All right, the NFL season is officially over. So we got March Madness coming up, final stretch of the NBA, the NHL season. Now is the time. You want tickets? Check out the Game Time app. It's the fastest growing ticket app. They got you covered. March Madness tickets, NBA tickets, playoff tickets, NHL tickets, Game Time. They also do comedy shows. They also do concerts. Anything you want to attend, check out the Game Time app. And right now, $20 off your first purchase. How? Download the Game Time app and use the redeem code Colin. Me, COLIN, $20 off your first tickets. Comedy, concerts, we got March Madness. You got to be at those games. NHL, NBA, final stretch run. The Game Time app. Last minute tickets. Lowest prices guaranteed. This week there was a moment, Nick, where Kendrick Perkins sort of pushed back on Jokic, Steve Nash, and Dirk Nowitzki winning MVPs, but at the time, perhaps being overstated, generous voting by the media. So what Kendrick Perkins was asserting is there have been 3 white players, Dirk Nowitzki, Dallas, Steve Nash, Phoenix a couple of times, and Jokic, who are not top 10 in scoring, but are winning MVPs. He said, what do they all have in common? J.J. Redick fired back, asserting that Kendrick Perkins was playing, the race card, and it was unfair. It was a highly contested moment, and it was pretty riveting television. And I'm wondering, Nick, because you've been outspoken where you think Jokic is an overstated player, what was your reaction to that, very turbulent TV moment?
I didn't see the whole segment, but I saw the clip, so I will preface it with that. There is nothing, and I know we're going to talk about this, but I'm really glad we are. There are very, very few things that make me more frustrated than when people who know better, smart people, act like someone invoking the idea that race could play a part in things means they are calling giant swaths of people racist. Right. Kendrick did not call NBA voters racist. Kendrick raised the point, I believe what he raised was, in NBA history, or in the last 50 years, whatever it is, there have been 3 guys to win league MVP without, or in the last 40 years, I think, without being in the top 10 in scoring. And it was Dirk, Nash, and Jokic this year. And in the last 60 years, there's been 1 guy to win 3 straight MVPs, Larry Bird. And now it looks like it's going to be Jokic now. That you raised that point and clearly implied race is a factor. That does not mean you are calling everyone racist. It is no different than when I talk about offensive coordinators who've made it to the Super Bowl and the coaching opportunities they've gotten, and then there's Eric Bieniemy and Byron Leftwich. I think race has played a factor, even if it is a subconscious factor in this. And I think that if we are just flatly analyzing the Jokic situation, since 1980, 3 guys have won an MVP with a team not being a top 3 or 4 seed. Moses in 82, Russ, the triple-double year that you mentioned, Jokic last year. So right or wrong, that was an aberrant event. So he got an exception there, right? I just said in the last 60 years, only 1 guy has won 3 in a row. So him winning 3 in a row would be an exception to what the history is.
Sure.
Is it in play that there is, and I saw an NBA trainer, a white NBA trainer, I forget who it is, actually tweeted this. I think it's an interesting point. His belief that the general media, the white general media, tends to subconsciously, maybe unintentionally, underrate good white players. They think, probably not that good. The guys who are like actually, and those guys actually get underrated by maybe a guy like J.J. Redick. Maybe J.J. didn't get enough credit for how good of a player he was because he was white. That doesn't mean they're racist. It means race works in our brains a bunch of different ways. While that happens, simultaneously, slightly overrating the great white players. And do I think that happens? Yes. Do I think it is noteworthy that every time Michael or LeBron or Giannis won back-to-back, the voters then said, okay, let's try someone else. You know what I mean? Let's just give someone else a try. But Bird won 3 in a row and Jokic's about to win 3 in a row. I think it's noteworthy. I don't think that means we're calling anyone God dog Klansman. And it is to me trying to shut down a conversation. I actually do not think. I think if I'm listing all the reasons that Jokic is now going to win probably his 3rd straight MVP, race would not be in my top 5, but it would be somewhere on that pie chart, a very small one. I think the voters being public, you know how they made it so like, hey, everybody gets to see not only who votes, but who they voted for. I think that hurts because I think there is a herd mentality and a fear of being different amongst the voters. I think if it were an anonymous ballot, a lot of these guys would say, man, I'm not going to be a part of the reason that during the peak of Giannis, someone else won more MVPs. Give me a break. I'm just not. I'm just not. No, I'm voting for Giannis. But I think there's a fear of like, how am I going to justify it when his BPM is not? So I think it is I think it is more nuanced than people give it credit for. And I would have been very upset if I were Kendrick and a teammate did that to me. I wouldn't have liked it. But that's my take.
So I'm listening to KG, his podcast with Paul Pierce.
Okay.
And he mentions how he's like, man, I've been in this league a long time. I read body language. He goes, when LeBron had that night and AD didn't even get up, I don't care if you have a bum ankle, you get up. And he said he thinks the Lakers are looking at these next 10 games without LeBron as the future of AD. Can they win without LeBron? If they can't, he's gone. But it was really interesting. So I mentioned something. I had been tipped by somebody around the Lakers that said, LeBron and AD, after that reaction to LeBron breaking Kareem Abdul-Jabbar all-time scoring record, they're not boys. It's not hostile, but then they're not guys, right? You can tell from body language. KG points this out. When I mentioned that 2 days later, I got the strongest reaction from LeBron's people on anything I've ever said. What does that tell you? They got really defensive. I think there is a feeling LeBron feels like he kind of needs him for at least this year, because I had been told in the last year there are times LeBron is disappointed. He came in post-bubble out of shape. It was his turn to sort of triumphantly take the team. When LeBron's missing, AD's often not playing as well. They've only played like 12 games together since the bubble. That's their longest streak. And there's been some disappointment in the LeBron camp. When I said that, major reaction from LeBron's group, and I trusted my source. So my takeaway on this is LeBron left D. Wade, okay, and didn't give him a heads up. One of his best friends ever. Melo's one of his best friends ever. He's never really actively pursued him and said, bring him in. He did with Westbrook.
Yep.
He didn't with Melo. And I guess my takeaway is that the LeBron-AD thing is over, but LeBron's really sensitive to it because he did move off Wade. He did get criticized for it. I think it's over. I think LeBron's smart enough to see the temperature in the room on social media. He's gonna be there for him when he's mic'd. He's like, I love you, man. He makes sure everybody knows. But I'm not going to just say AD's reaction to the Kareem moment is nothing.
Well, listen, it's certainly not nothing. I don't know what it was. It was one of the most bizarre things I've seen in sports in a couple of years. It was one of the most bizarre, shocking things I've seen in sports, and I don't have any sourcing on what was going on. I think I speculated with you, but it's been so long, and this was just blind speculation. Because it was so bizarre, I thought something bizarre had to have happened. That was right around the trade deadline. And we knew the Lakers called about Kyrie. And we now know Durant was available. And I have no sourcing on this, and I've said it on TV a couple times, and no one has texted me like, you're on to something, so I'm probably wrong. I'm just saying in the moment, I was like, I wonder if part of it, once the Nets were like, we're not doing Kyrie, it's like, well, any interest in Anthony Davis for Kevin Durant? And that filtered back to AD, and he felt betrayed, and felt hurt, whatever, because something had. Here's what I do know without having any sourcing. Something happened, because that was weird. That was as weird as it gets. With all that said, I don't think the Lakers are dead this year, man. I don't. You can say I'm crazy. I go up and down the Western Conference. I'm like, okay, the 1 seed is Denver. I know a healthy LeBron and AD can beat them. I know they can. They're the one.
I've said it on the air. Totally agree. Memphis now is off into the weeds.
Who knows with Memphis?
By the way, Ja Morant reportedly, J-Mac said this to me today on the air, is that, and this was 2 days ago when this airs, is that, when Ja goes out, his teammates don't go with him. He's got his guys. Is there resentment that he has blown the season up in that room?
I don't know, but I do know that Memphis is right now not looking as good as they were at any point in the last 18 months. The 3 seed, God love them, is light the damn beam Sacramento. And I got mad respect for Sacramento. Mm-hmm. My lovely wife, who you adore, she's from Sacramento. Love the people there.
No defense.
None. Best offense in the league, but no experience and no defense. Okay?
Same with Dallas. Since Kyrie showed up, you shoot 53% against the Mavs. No defense.
Right. We joked about this on the show. NBA used to be a race to 100. With the Mavs, it's kind of like a race to 125. It's like, who's going to get there first? Like Phoenix, set them aside for a moment. They should be the favorites. I get it. Dallas was my pick at the beginning of the year. I don't think Kyrie's part of winning. I don't love it. Last year they had the number 8 defense. It's falling apart. I know you believe in the Warriors. I got a nut fact for you, Colin. Since 1980, the worst road record to win a title, 21-20. The Warriors have won 7 times on the road this year. I don't think it's their season. Okay. So now, then you have the Clippers, who made the brilliant decision of adding Russell Westbrook for no reason whatsoever. And then there's Phoenix, which has everything you'd want, not quite as much depth as you'd want. However, there are certain teams that when an injury happens, the Bucks last year with Middleton, it's like, God dog it. What terrible luck. Couldn't see it coming. Bad timing, bad luck. There are certain teams when injuries happen, like the Lakers every year post-bubble. It's like, well, yeah, one guy's in year 20 and the other guy's been injured his whole career. Or the Clippers. It's like, well, Kawhi his body's breaking down. The Suns, veteran leader and best player, are incredibly injury prone now. You can't, like, Kevin Durant is post Achilles, is injured all the time. So I just say that you can't, people always throw out the caveat of if healthy. Well, there are certain teams more likely to be healthy than others. And the Suns, Clippers, and Lakers are 3 teams that if they're hurt, it's like, yeah, well, that's, that's the risk you run. So the point I'm making is, I think everything you said about the relationship might be correct and the Lakers long-term might be correct. But I also think if they can survive this time without LeBron, I don't know the severity of the foot injury, but if they survive it, LeBron having 3 weeks off before a playoff run in a wide open West, I'm not ready to write him off yet. Maybe I'm, a romantic, but I'm not ready to write him off. I will tell you one team that I think is going to feel like this could have been a year for a great run and now is questioning everything about it was the Pelicans. Pelicans were looking unbelievable, and now we don't know when Zion's ever going to play, and that's a disaster for him.
Well, the Zion Ja Morant class felt great. Zion can't get healthy, and Ja Morant can't grow up. So, it's one of the things, not that I defended Ja, but I said, in the NFL, a guy comes in after 4 years at Georgia, 3 or 4 years at Alabama. They've gone to college. The global perspective of classmates. They've had hard coaching. These are men. The two best guys in this year's draft forego college, right? Yeah. So it's AAU or international basketball to a paid league to the NBA. They can't drink in the team hotel. So I think part of what's sort of endemic in this sport, and you got to come to terms with it, is these guys aren't emotionally ready. And I think it's just a reality is when I look at these rookies, first of all, they all hit a wall year one because college basketball is regional travel, mostly 36 games. NBA is domestic travel, count preseason, playoffs could be 100 games. So they all hit a wall at like game 65. They can't keep weight on. They have to play defense. They're burning 7,000 calories a night. By year two, expectations ramp up. Social media, parents, hanger-oners. So the Ja situation, I think, will get turned it around. And I'm not defending him, but isn't this sort of something that's built into the sport? These are kids. Now they have revenue basketball, revenue shoes, revenue social. It's overwhelming.
Listen, so here's the thing. I'm amazed anybody at that age, that money, that fame doesn't just create disaster after disaster. So I am super, I've told this story to you before. I'm smart kid. I think good family. All the opportunities. Forget getting 50 million. I, right out of college, one who wants to be a millionaire and won 50,000, and it's gone in 9 months. Gone. By the way, I didn't buy a car. I didn't have any assets. It was spent gambling, drinking, out is spent. People are like, you're paying for everybody's lifestyle. Yeah, of course you are. Of course you are. So I'm going to defend a lot of that stuff. Like people are like, oh, all these guys, they're paying for their friends. As soon as you have money, you like doing things that cost money, and nobody likes to do them alone. So it's like, hey guys, want to go to dinner? And if all your friends are like, yeah, I've got money for Fridays and you have money for Mastro's, and I guess what? You're all going to Mastro's and you're paying the bill. It's like, hey, guys, it's the off season. You want to go on vacation? And they're like, yeah, I can pay for Branson. And you're like, I was thinking Barbados. I guess we'll all go and I'll pay for it. So I understand, like, all of that stuff is, to me, totally reasonable. The gun stuff scares me. And again, I'm going to couch it with this part of it. There is legitimate, understandable pushback from people who are like, hold on a second. We got more guns than people in this country. Everybody's allowed to have guns. And we only freak out when it's a young black guy. He wasn't breaking any laws, potentially, all that. Got it. I actually think in a lot of ways, there are fair points there as far as the hypocrisy of it all. What is undeniable, though, is what he is doing is dangerous. Forget if it's right or wrong. It's dangerous. It would be dangerous anywhere. It is particularly dangerous in Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis, Tennessee has the third highest homicide rate of any major city in the country. 50 biggest cities, Bloomberg just had this, 50 biggest cities in America. Memphis, Tennessee's murder rate is number 3. It is 9 times New York City, okay? Which means if you are one of, as far as gun violence, the most dangerous cities in America, you're one of the most dangerous cities in the world in developed countries. That's where he lives. We just saw in Memphis a Memphis celebrity, beloved Young Dolph, a rapper, murdered at a bakery in the last year. I don't know if Ja's a real gangster or not. I don't know if he's hanging with real gangsters or not. I don't know if he's just, playing for the gram. I know that city. My wife, who you adore, her best friend, who you've met a few times, saw at the Super Bowl, Nicole, who's with us all the time, lives in Memphis. We go to Memphis a lot. I know the city. I know the nightlife. I told this story on my pod the other day. I don't know if I should tell it or not, but whatever. We went down to Memphis for the Southern Heritage Classic. Deion's team, Jackson State, saw it. That night, we went out to a lot of the places that I know, like, are places Ja goes in Memphis. That scene, those clubs, right? One of the guys who's promoting one of the parties that night knew I was coming. He knew Nicole, knew I was coming, whatever. When we got there, he said, "Hey, thanks for coming, Nick." I was like, "Yeah, it's great, whatever." And he said, "This is such and such. He's going to be with you tonight." Like, huh? He's like, "No," he's like, "I brought it. He's one of my security guys. He's just going to be with you all night." I'm like, "No, come on, man." Like, I thought he was doing it like I was like some big shot. He's like, "No." He's like, I know my city, and I know I'll feel better. He'll be with you." His point was, you have a little bit of notoriety, a little bit of jewelry. I'd feel better if I knew someone who knew everything about the city was here with you. And now some might say, and if bosses hear this, they might say, "Yeah, Nick, maybe go to a different club. maybe go somewhere else." But whatever it is, you're young, you're having fun. That is where Ja lives. And whether he is an actual tough guy or not, actual tough guys see these videos and see how he's conducting himself. And I don't think it's being hyperbolic to say what he's doing is dangerous.
Yeah.
Not that he's going to hurt someone. That something could happen to him. And this is the last point I'll make on it. The opportunity in front of him, there is, like, he's in a very unique spot, because if someone were to say who are the best players in the NBA over the next, 6 years. So LeBron's gone, Durant's probably aged out of it, Steph might be aged out of it. So, like, from 2026 to 2032 are the best players. People probably say, well, Giannis, Luka, Jokic, Embiid, and then you say Ja, Tatum, whomever. Here's my point. There is a lot of money in he's never going to be the best player in the league, but he might be the best American player in the league for a long time. Because all the guys ahead of him, there's different marketing available for the best American player. There just is. Like, Luka and Jokic and Giannis are not going to get all of the endorsements that the guy who's the best player in the league should get as an American guy would. That could all go to Ja. People love him. He's electrifying. But the shit he's doing is dangerous. It's flatly dangerous. And I hope he gets that. And I hope he's all right.
By the way, I know you don't buy the Warriors, but I do think it's interesting, not just because he's a member of the Volume, but I watch the Warriors a lot, almost every game, at least half. He's a much bigger part of their offense as a catalyst than people will ever admit. The ball moves significantly better when he's on the floor. He remains maybe the best defensive player, certainly for his size in the league. He's a classic Rodman annoyance. And I think he plays with there's so much intellectual capital with all those playoff games, his spacing, his screening, that when he went after Jordan Poole, some have suggested it hurt the team on the road, that's where you hang out together. And it's a more cliquey team. People took sides after that. Do you buy into that?
Oh, well, that's really interesting. I haven't heard that specific theory, because the home road splits don't make sense.
But the road, cliquey teams aren't good on the road.
No, so maybe, listen, only Houston and San Antonio have fewer road wins this year. Think about that. The Charlotte Hornets have been better on the road this year. The Pistons have as many road wins. That seems impossible. It really seems impossible. So there's got to be something going on.
Right.
And the outlier event is exactly what you said, is Draymond slugging Poole. And this is not that one guy's, a vet's going to punch a younger player is going to happen, but this is one of the risks when you try to bridge generations like the Warriors with the light years thing we're trying to do, is that you are going to have, and it's not like the NFL where there's so many guys, everybody can, have their own group. There's only 14 guys on a team. There's only 9 guys that matter at all. And would it be shocking for anyone? Because the only guy that kind of straddles the line is Wiggins as far as age. You have really young, and then you have the 4 guys who've been there for all of it. Yeah. Steph, Clay, Draymond, and Iguodala. That's it. And so it is a weird spot. I also think that winning that title that they won was so important and so gratifying and so much for all of those guys. Can't ever tell me nothing. Nothing. Title won. It's the first one. The Cavs were hurt. And then the very next year, LeBron killed them, which doesn't take that title away, but it feels a little, it makes you feel a little different about it. Then you're the best team in the world by far, but there's the weird thing with Kevin. You know what I mean? Steph's the guy, but Kevin's there. And then Kevin leaves, and you're in the damn wilderness. You miss the playoffs outright, and then you get knocked out in the play-in. That's the 2 years. And then you win the whole thing again.
Yeah.
I think, man, it is hard to amp yourself back up again.
I think, there's a lot of people that watch them even more closely than I do that felt like that was the last great moment for the franchise, those games in Boston.
I think, here's the thing, and that could also explain the home road, which is they're not that great of a team at this point. They are emotionally spent, but at home, they get that extra oomph, energy, plus it is still intimidating for opponents. So again, I don't think they're a 7-24 level team independent, but it might be that it's less about the road record being so awful and more about the home record slightly inflated for where it should be, because they get the boost from the crowd and all of that. I just think that strikes me as it's a lot of years, Colin. It's 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3. We're in the 9th year from when they won their first title to right now. And people can be like, LeBron went to 8 straight. 2 different teams. By the end of the run in Miami, they were spent. And by the end of the run in Cleveland, they were spent. LeBron's ability to bridge that whole thing is mind-boggling. But we're now talking 9 years of title contention, essentially. That's a lot, man. That's a lot. And it's why I just have a hard time thinking they can gear up for one more hurrah. Maybe they can, but I think they might. If they find themselves in the play-in, which is on the board, unlikely, but on the board, having to immediately gear up for elimination level, then I just think they're in a rough spot, which is one of the reasons the West feels so open to me.
Nick Wright. We did.
Before we go, can I just ask you one question from the NBA Eastern Conference for a second? How much, because I'm not able to watch your show quite as, I watch pieces of it every day, but when I was in the mornings, I'd be at home and I'd have it on. So I'd kind of always hear you. Now you're on while I'm prepping. And I don't know about you. I try to consume almost nothing before I go on the air.
Same.
Because or else it'll get in my brain and I don't want to.
Same thing.
How much have you talked on your show about the New York Knicks?
Well, not a lot.
Okay, that's the right answer.
Yeah.
No, I'm not asking you to talk about him now. That's the reason I asked you was because the amount of attention that the moment they have a good 2 weeks, this team that's been out of round one once this millennia gets, because my theory on it is the following. I really asked you that just so I could go on this rant. My apologies.
Sure.
I think media that works in New York likes Knicks fans liking them. They like walking down the street and having, shout out to the Knicks. Thanks for giving the Knicks love. And I won't do it. And people on my show, they're like, ready to admit the Knicks are a threat. To who? To what? And I said today, over the last 50 years, the Cavs, who, by the way, are currently the 4 seed and the Knicks are the 5, have been a better franchise.
Yeah.
Like, it's flatly true. The last 50 years, the Cavs have the same. In the last 40 years, the Knicks have no titles. Last 50 years, the Knicks have won. The Cavs have won. The Cavs have one of the, I'll be generous here, 2 greatest players ever, really greatest players ever. The Knicks have the 34th greatest player ever. Like, give me a break. And even recently, and right now, who has the best player between them? The Cavs. Who has the best young player between them? The Cavs. But I don't usually believe in like coastal media bias, except for on 2 things: New York Knicks coverage and wildfire coverage in LA in the other direction. I believe this is a totally random take to end the show on. I believe if anywhere on the Eastern Corridor had fires the way Los Angeles does, it would be wall-to-wall news coverage every time it happens. If 20 miles north of Washington, D.C., you had 150 acres on fire, I have a feeling CNN would be all over it. But it happens in California, like, I don't even know. It's weird out there. There's oceans, mountains, who gives a shit? Like, nobody talks about it. It's crazy to me. But Knicks coverage, the over coverage of the Knicks and the under coverage of the California weather stuff, that's where I believe East Coast media bias happens. That's my ending take.
The Knicks, it's a Tibbs team. Play really hard every night. Effort wins a lot of regular season games. In the playoffs, everybody plays hard. It's talent, and they don't have enough offense. You don't have an extra
gear. You can't get to it. If your foot's always to the ground on the accelerator, then when someone else goes into 5th gear, you're like, I was already there, and now I can't win the race. I've read this book before.
All right, buddy. Once a month, we bring him in. We do an hour. I usually do 30 minutes.
This was
Congrats
fun.
on all your success.
Oh, thanks. You too. Congrats on this highest rated TV show ever. You're crushing. Love you, man. I'll talk to you soon.